have the greatest job in the world, and that's working with dogs.
Best in Show winner is the French Bulldog.
Winston won the National Dog Show. It was amazing. It was exciting. And to have a dog to be #1 dog in this country, you have to have great nutrition. And I always fed Pro Plan. Just like us, when we eat well, we feel good. And I just love that food and what it's done all these years to all the dogs I've bred and all the dogs I've shown.
Welcome to Pure Dog Talk. I am your host, Laura Reeves. And all right, you guys, I get the opportunity to talk to some really cool people on this show and bring you the information. And today I'm pretty excited. Our guest today is Jennifer Holland. She is the author of a book called Dog Smart: Life-Changing Lessons in Canine Intelligence. And it's published by National Geographic. And I'm telling you guys, this is really, really, really good. And a lot of the information in it is stuff that we might know or might not know, or might have done or not done. But it's got such a wonderful tone and tenor. It's excellent for your puppy buyers, for your friends and family who are not dog people. You're going to love it. So welcome, Jennifer. I'm really excited to have you join us.
Thank you. What a lovely intro. I appreciate that.
I was really impressed. I as I mentioned to you offline, every time I get a book submitted to me, I'm like, I don't know, man, you know. So this was an absolute pleasant surprise. So particularly when I read the introduction and you own a Kai Ken and a Korean Jendo. It's like, white people.
Yep. Definitely not your average household, for sure.
I love it. So give us the 411. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to this book.
Yeah. So I've been writing about animals, natural history, for pretty much my whole career. I spent a long stretch at National Geographic as a staff writer, so I was doing kind of those quintessential old-timey Nat Geo, go out in the field and be around the monkeys and watch the birds.
Pretty much are like bowing right now and jealous of this work.
It was fantastic. It was a lovely time. But always have loved our animals closer to home as well. And so I had some success with my Unlikely Friendships book series some years back, and that was kind of more animals in the home and on farms and kind of these animals that come together in surprising ways. And this was just an opportunity to dive into one of my favorites. It's sort of cliche to say your dog is your best friend, but it really, they are special. And I just was really excited at the prospect of trying to find a new way to talk about them, to share my own experience, but also really dig into some of the science of what we know about how they think and learn and problem solve, all of that good stuff. And
your bibliography and resources pages, I'm telling you, I'm like scan. I'm like, I need this study and this study.
There's a lot of good stuff out there.
There's a lot of good stuff out there, and you've really brought it together in this book. So I'm saying, listeners, if you're going to buy the book, it's an enjoyable read, but the resources that Jennifer's put in the back are huge. So tell me, what was like, you went with hunting dogs and detection dogs and herding dogs, and you went with all kinds of different dogs doing different jobs.
Yes.
So talk to me about which one was your favorite.
Oh, that's an impossible question. My favorite, I went into it looking for working dogs because I wanted to get at the idea of intelligence as, in part as opportunity. And it seemed that working dogs are going to have the most opportunity to shine in all the different ways that dogs can shine. And so, as you mentioned, I was with all these different kinds of dogs doing all of their amazing jobs. And some of them I got to really get in there. Like, for example, I got to experience what it's like to be led by a seeing eye dog, by a guide dog. That would have been probably one of my favorite experiences, just because it was so foreign to me, and something you kind of did as a kid. You sort of pretend and close your eyes and see if you can get through your house without banging into a wall. But to actually hand over that control to another being, to this animal, and trust on a street,
In
that they're
Manhattan,
going
if
to
I
keep you safe
remember.
in Manhattan, crowded Tuesday or Wednesday. That was just an amazing experience. That happened to be a lab, although there were, lots of other breeds that I think are perfectly capable of being guide dogs. But that was a pretty interesting, just kind of threw myself into it and wanted to feel what it was like experience. And I came away even more impressed than I was before.
The other one that I thought was pretty impressive, I have watched a lot of demos of um, protection dogs and patrol dogs, and you
Yeah.
actually took a sleeve hit. Am I hearing
Okay.
that right?
I did indeed. It's funny. This was actually my second time I got to do that. The first time was for another project, and the dog took me to the ground.
Oh,
I
I'm
was
sure.
more just sort of out in a field. This one, I was in a corner, and so I didn't have anywhere to go, so I just smacked into the wall. But yeah, I got to wear the big sweaty suit and put
Mhm.
my arm out, and
Trust me,
those.
you're happy about the
Yeah,
suit.
I'm very happy to have the suit, even though it was a bit big on me, a little loose. But incredible, wonderful people that did the demos for me, and this policeman brought this Belgian Malinois around the corner and set him loose on my arm, and I have some video of it, and my head just sort of flops around like a rag doll, and the dog did not want to let go. This took a little while to actually pry him off of me, but and I got a good bruise. But
Yeah.
again, just really what I was trying to think about was how you train this animal. That here we've raised them to be these sweet and loving animals, and I was told training them to bite a person is a really hard thing to do because they don't necessarily want to do that, and so it has to be a game. It has to be a game for them. The sleeve is a sleeve. It's not, a person. And then to be able to train them to stop if they're in mid bite and here they're getting that thrill of that, and you have to tell them no. The bad guy has waved the white flag. It was remarkable to me that a dog can stop and have that self control.
Right. Well, there were a couple of things in there that I thought were super fascinating. And again, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of my listeners are people who either do these things, they do IPO, they do Schutzhund training, they're familiar with this. But it was really fascinating reading it from the perspective of what I call junkie public, right? The
Mm,
average person who isn't seeped in this like we are.
yeah,
And so a couple of the things that I thought you said were really, really fascinating. And amongst them was that piece about control. And I've
yeah.
had a number of podcasts on this topic. You guys, when I talked to Denise Fenzi, we talked about this some. But talk to me about what you learned and what people told you about how important not just the instinct to do a thing is, but the
Hmm.
control that says, I'm you need to not do that thing right now because I asked you to.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I was around some amazing trainers, people who clearly have that special something with dogs and really know what they're doing and how to do it right. But yeah, the control, the relationship with the person, and sort of the very controlled relationship there, the dog's eyes on the person, waiting for the command, responding to the command. And then this idea of intelligent disobedience, where a dog has to you know know when to say no, and I've been trained very, very well to respond to your commands, but this time I know better than you, and I'm not going into the street when you're telling me to, or I see the branch hanging down and I'm going to steer you a different way. And so again, sort of the control to stop and make that choice of when to obey the command and when to make a different decision, to protect the person, or in response to a different
Search
situation.
and
Amazing.
rescue, man trailing,
Amazing.
all of that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Really
absolutely.
incredible.
The other one that I thought just kind of squirrel, but was really cool. We in dog shows, right? We tell people to take a mint in their mouth because the dog can smell their nerves. And so you have a whole chapter on this, and I loved it. I'm like, yes, let's talk more about that. And I really loved, because this is something I have observed, sort of instinctively known, but not known the science behind. We raise puppies, we breed dogs all the time. Puppies raised in a happy environment are consistently steadier dogs than
Mm,
dogs raised in an unhappy environment. And I even had um, a situation with a repeat breeding. So the same genetics, same individual
hmm.
dogs.
Yeah.
First time the litter was raised in a negative situation, just variety of things, and the puppies were all not really sane.
Hmm.
Second time raised in a much calmer, much quieter, much more positive environment. Everybody in the litter was like Walmart greeters. So talk to me about
Yeah.
what you learned and the science behind that, because to me that is absolutely foundational for a lot of what we do as dog breeders.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to the idea that it's changed so much, the idea of how to train, and I mean, your audience will know better than I, but just the whole positive reinforcement kind of taking over from the idea of being the alpha and putting the dog on its back, and the sort of more punishment oriented. And I don't claim to know kind of what the right balance is exactly, but I do think it's terrific that there is more weight given to positive training. And I do think, from what I read and learned and talked to scientists, that feeling, that positive feeling, the bond with the person, that trust that's there, it letting a dog kind of do things, a little bit more in its natural way makes them more optimistic, according to studies. It gets them,
And the
you know,
science was about even puppies, like itty baby
yeah,
puppies.
yeah,
And
yeah,
raised, that was the one I was specifically twigged to, because that
yeah.
has so much bearing on, what we do as breeders.
Yeah, and so one of the breeder trainers that I spent time with, she's very much an advocate of this kind of starting
Hmm.
so early with puppies and
Yep.
just exposing them to everything and really making them bomb proof,
Yep.
so that whatever job they go into, or no job, maybe
Hmm.
just to sit on
Yep.
your couch, they're ready for it. If you open and close an umbrella, if there's thunder, if there's
Yep.
a person in a you know rattly coat or
Yep.
whatever, it's nothing is going to bother them.
We
and
do
and the
that.
idea that they, yeah.
Yeah.
Trupanion is revolutionizing medical insurance for pets by providing the best possible experience to our members. And it's not some space age dream, it's happening now. We pay your veterinarian directly while you're checking out, and we're the only ones who can, which means you have decisions in seconds, and you don't have to wait for reimbursement. So, unlike with other providers, you'll keep more money in your pocket. Ask your veterinarian if Trupanion can pay them directly, because there's pet insurance, and then there's Trupanion.
The people that are listening on my podcast, we have puppy culture, and we have Avidog, and we have all kinds of different systems that we use that are all the same
Hmm.
basic concept. And the part of it that really jumped out at me was that the puppies who were given um, unhappy or negative sweat smell, scared sweat
Hmm.
smell,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
grew up to be unhappy, negative puppies. And the ones that were given happy sweat smell, I mean,
yeah,
like, wow, that's
yeah,
mind
yeah.
boggling.
Just so affected by us in that way.
Hmm.
Just, the importance of, our level of stress, or,
Hmm.
the positive, for them feeling that we're feeling good is
Hmm.
important to how they respond and how they behave. And just shows that incredible kind of coevolution that's happened, and that
Yes.
bond that we have,
Yeah.
that really, I think, makes them particularly special. It really sets
Yeah.
them apart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, your intro, kind of early part of the book, talking about the history and the coevolution and kind of how that happened. I thought there was lots of good research in there. That's what I said, guys. The bibliography on this is amazing.
And that was a
um,
select bibliography. I had to
yeah,
stop.
I'm sure. I'm sure it was. So I mean, those are the kind of little nuggets that I think are really, really valuable for folks that are listening to this. And what changed about kind of your thinking as someone who isn't as wrapped up. I mean, you own purebred dogs, but you're not in the life like we are. What
Yeah,
has
yeah,
changed about how you think about your dogs, about dogs in general, as you were doing this work?
yeah. I went into it thinking I knew everything. I thought I know dogs. We joke around our house. I would say I know dogs. I'm the dog whisperer. I know, I get along with dogs. I didn't know anything. I went in there. I learned a lot, and it did. It changed in subtle ways. It changed just kind of how I see dogs out in the wild. Just kind of my response to dogs. I just kind of give them a little more credit for the amazing things they do naturally that aren't necessarily about us, but are just, the fact that they have this incredible olfactory intelligence and their way that they communicate, the subtleties of their body language, just all of that. I'm much more attentive to that, and my expectations are also different with my dogs. I'm not a good trainer. We did not do a great job with my dogs. And so I really don't, I'm never going to punish them. I don't really see their mistakes as their fault necessarily. I'm not praising them for doing the wrong thing, but I just am much more appreciative of why they might be acting the way they are. Probably I didn't do a good enough job making it clear what they're supposed to be doing. And that's on me. That's not on them.
But I
Um,
love that, and it's so I think it's instructive, and the book talks about body language and
yeah.
communication, right, between dogs and people. And I'm in the
Yeah.
process of a project talking about those very things, right? Like, how do you read? What do you take away from the eyes, the ears, the lips, the tongue, the
Yeah.
tail, right? Like,
Yeah.
all of those pieces are dogs communicating. And I mean, it was interesting, the chapter about, the dog that talks by pushing buttons, right?
Mhm.
Like, I'm like, okay, that's cool, but no.
It's
I,
adorable.
I'm more interested in the parts that we're talking about. And I think these are good information and data points for people, even that, like myself, that are really actively involved with dogs, talking
Mhm.
about how to see what the dog is telling you.
Mhm.
So there was a conversation that I didn't really get too in depth in this chapter, but you talk through the book about a mountain cur that you
Mhm.
had some interaction with. So tell us that story, because it was really kind of interesting.
Yeah, this is a dog that was rescued by some friends. I actually met them through Airbnb. It's kind of its own little story, but befriended my Airbnb hosts and mostly their dog, which is, for people who know a mountain cur, this is a dog you don't just run right up to and hug. I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely a little frightening. And in fact, if you buy the book, he is on the back of the book. He's the only actual dog I know who made it onto the cover or onto the book itself, but he's in the corner facing in on the back of the book. Oh, and that's
That's
my
so
my
cute.
Jindo, my
Look at
Jindo.
him.
Yeah, that's Kitty. But this dog just the timing of meeting this dog gave me opportunities to test out what I was learning,
Mhm.
and it just so happened that I went back and spent time with him periodically through the research of the book. And so each time I was with him, I kind of wrote about how our relationship was and how he responded to me and what I did and didn't do, what I had learned, would work better, and observing him just being a dog and how I really came to appreciate seeing him just run full on and seeing him use his nose and do the natural things that dogs do regardless of whether we're standing there.
Mhm.
And in the end, he even was a little bit of an emotional support dog for me, probably not typical for that breed, but he, it was a period when my father was in, his health was declining, and each evening after spending time with my dad, I would get to go back and be with this dog, and it just worked. He was the thing I looked forward to in the evening, and he just let me put my head against his head and look into his eyes, and just kind of did all the things I needed him to do to make me feel better. And he's a friend to this day, the whole family. But I do especially enjoy, I have to admit,
Mhm.
going back and seeing Odin and loving that he remembers me each time.
I love that. Um, Walk us through some of the what would have been new to you science that you found? I mean, I talk about this like multiple pages bibliography. You
Yeah.
did deep dives in a whole bunch of studies. You talked to James Serple, you talked to a lot of people, the canine independence people. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of data in this book that you've
Yeah.
incorporated. So talk us through kind of what was new to you information and how that applied to what you were learning.
I would say, some of what was new, I had heard, for example, that they were putting a dog in an MRI.
Mhm.
And so, of course, I had to see that. I had to talk to them about how do you train a dog to do that? What
Mhm.
kinds of studies can you do? What does that tell us
Mhm.
to watch what's happening in a dog's brain when you expose them to whatever it is of interest? And it was really neat to hear things like, there's a study that showed that some dogs prefer praise to even a treat, and that they want to hear their person's voice, and things like that just reinforce the idea that the dog really does know you and has feelings for you, that there's this emotional component. They're not just robots and just instinct, which of course your audience knows that. But it was fascinating to see the different kinds of things that they can look at with that, just exposing dogs to different things, and seeing in real time where in the brain is that showing up, and what does that tell us? How does that compare to humans? So just that was really neat. And then a lot of the work with olfaction was quite remarkable. Just how incredibly sensitive. I mean, we all know that nose is sensitive, but I was with people who are running tests to try to really quantify that. And I was told at Auburn University, we're not sure we have machines yet that are sophisticated enough to actually measure, what low concentration of something needs to exist for a dog to be able to detect it. And so just more everywhere I looked, there was kind of some remarkable thing that I knew in theory, but when I heard they've actually are studying that and look at what they're finding, just, yeah, really amazing stuff.
That's so cool. The American Kennel Club has developed a program. I don't know if you interacted with it at all, maybe through Auburn, where they are breeding and developing the United States' own detection dogs. That
Yeah, yeah,
previously most of the airports and whatever were buying detection dogs from overseas, and
yeah.
so they have developed this program. I've been to a couple of their conferences, and one of the guys that was speaking at the conference just always stayed with me. There's no machine that they can find
hmm
that is as successful as the dog's nose in
Yeah,
detecting whatever it is.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I was interested too to realize that, that's not necessarily dogs only. I mean, there are other mammals with incredible noses, and we're just sort of focused on dogs. But there's so many components that come together in dogs that make them so perfect for these jobs that we give them and for this relationship we have with them. So, I don't think rats were ever going to quite fill that same niche as much as maybe they
I
could
know
have.
there's people that like them, but I'm just a hard no. I'm just like a pass. I'm a solid pass on that.
Not going to have it in my bed, I don't
No.
think, much as I love
No.
that.
Okay, sorry. Um,
You're
we've
not
got lots
alone.
of people in the world of purebred dogs. They do barn hunt, right? So they have rats in tubes, and the dogs
Yeah.
they have competitions to find the rats in the tubes. So these people actually have rats, and they think they're cool. And I'm sorry, guys. Peace,
They
y'all.
are very smart, very, very smart, and ticklish, apparently,
Oh,
rats.
interesting.
So that's kind of makes them, I don't know, that it makes them more endearing, perhaps.
Yeah, no, it's
No,
fine.
I tried.
I know. Good effort. Good A for effort on that one, Jennifer.
Okay, okay.
Talk to me. I Part of what was fascinating as you were going through, all the jobs and all the things they do, talking about the diabetic alert dogs and all of the different things on that. I have a really good friend who has developed adult onset juvenile diabetes and
Mm,
has trained her dog as an alert dog, her
mhm.
existing dog that she was showing. Talk us through that, because to me that sort of skill set is just so incredible, because it's a
Yeah,
combination, right? It's not just that they can smell it. There's more
right.
to it. right?
Yeah, because the fact that they can smell it is great. You can train them to smell pretty much anything, and then also have to train them to let you know.
Right.
Um, except in the many, many cases that you read about where the dog let somebody know without being trained to do so, knew something was wrong, or this is worth letting you know about. There's something growing here that shouldn't be.
Right.
But just that list of the diseases that they can
Mhm.
detect just keeps growing and growing. I don't know that there's anything yet that they've tried that hasn't, that they haven't been able
Right.
to do.
Right.
And even
Well,
things
pulling,
like,
you were talking about
responding to a seizure.
colonoscopies. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I hadn't
Oh,
even
can
heard that
hardly
one.
wait.
That's
I
amazing.
know. How great is that? I'd much
Trust
rather
me when
sit
I
there
tell
with a
you it's
dog and
great.
talk about sniffing your rear end. Anyway,
Uh,
excuse me for that. But yeah, smelling a seizure before it happens. I mean, we don't know exactly all the things they're responding to, but there certainly seems to be an olfactory component to all of these things, and the fact that many times dogs will respond to that in a way that's outward and kind of they know something isn't right, and you're the person that they're going to tell. They trust you. They want you to know something's wrong with you, maybe.
yeah.
And yeah, just incredible. And they're working with these dogs even to help with, this is outside scent, but like Alzheimer's patients and others to help, which to be working with a person that is so potentially inconsistent and who talk about intelligent disobedience. I mean, the dog really has to be smart enough to pick and choose what to do and what not to do in that circumstance. So that'll be interesting to watch how that develops.
Yeah, I missed that. I think I must have missed that chapter as I was going through it. But that to me is, no, you can't leave the house, right?
Right.
Being
Right.
able to train a dog wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. That's
That
pretty
is,
early stages, I think, but they're doing it. It's amazing.
well, I have long said there's literally my breed particularly, I have German Wirehair pointers. There's literally nothing they can't do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that, generically that's the case. I know what else I wanted to ask you. My final question, because I was reading, you were talking about your Kaiken and your Jindo and the differences in their intelligence. And I just thought it was so perceptive, the way they think and the way, so tell us that story, because I just think it's A, endearing, and B, so on point. I have a sign
Yeah.
that says, young dog, old dog, several stupid dogs, drive slow, right?
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, these two are very different animals. Clearly, the Jindo was a rescue, and we're
Mhm,
not really sure of his history. And he's a bit of a bully. We've struggled a little bit with keeping him from starting all kinds of fights, and he
mhm.
also his prey drive is just off the
Off the
charts. There's
charts.
there's there's no animal that will get by him, but we had the Kai Ken first,
Mhm,
and when we brought the Jindo in, he sort of immediately took over the top spot, and there was some fighting and some incidents, and so we've watched the Kai Ken, whose name is Monk. We've watched him figure out how to navigate the household and get
right.
what he needs without setting off a bad mood in the Jindo. And my husband said one plays checkers, the other plays chess. So Monk plays chess because he's thinking about the long term. He's clever. You see him like come into the room and he's literally kind of against the wall and he's kind of checking out, the other dog on the bed, and he just his body language, everything about it, you can see him assessing how is this going to go? Should I lie over here? Should I not come all the way in? And he even has a creative way of stealing the Jindo's spot on the bed by pretending. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. He pretends there's someone at the door.
Mhm.
He gets excited downstairs, and then the Jindo goes down to figure out who it is, and Monk gets up on the bed and takes the slot. So you see them just coming up with this stuff, and it's
I
just
I
beyond what you
love
would
that
ever think,
story the
right?
most because my partner tells a similar story about one of his pug dogs that she Like get everybody all excited and then go steal their spot.
Go see the spot. I mean, it's perfect.
Fabulous.
It works every time.
It is so fabulous. All right. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. Listeners, if you're here on YouTube, here's the book. You can see it on the video. It's a fun, very enjoyable read and lots of great resources for everybody else to use. So thanks,
Awesome.
Jennifer. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun to chat.